I think first though we have to talk about the big news from yesterday. Obviously, Doc Rivers mutually, quote unquote, parting ways with the LA Clippers. Um, and now the Clippers are another team looking for a coach, and Doc Rivers is another coach looking for a job.
Yeah, it's pretty surprising. Obviously, with the reports, it seems like Kawhi, PG, and the big stars of the Clippers didn't want this to happen, and it was more of a Steve Ballmer decision. So it's an interesting move because obviously Doc Rivers is a well-respected coach. He has that championship pedigree with the '08 Celtics, but
Mm-hmm.
he also has blown 2-3-1 leads with the Clippers alone, back with Lob City and now this new Kawhi team. And he blew one back in the day with Tracy McGrady. So he's clearly like maybe not the best coach for a team that doesn't have a great point guard because you see he succeeds a lot with Chris Paul or Rondo, and they want to find someone that fits this personnel of this team better. And I think personally, both of us expect Doc Rivers to come back straight into coaching.
Yeah, I 100%. I think Philly should already have offered him like
Yeah.
any amount of money that he wants. I think he's perfect. Mike D'Antoni, I thought was I don't know if it was a good fit, but I thought it was what was going to happen, either Mike D'Antoni or Ty Lue. I think now Ty Lue has to be a lock for the Clippers, kind of a
Hmm.
Nick Nurse being promoted situation, and I think Doc Rivers he's probably at the top of everyone's list, but I think Philly for him is probably the job that is the biggest, or like he probably wants to go to a contender. And even though we call Philly contenders every year,
Yeah.
and they're not, a lot of people blame it on Brett Brown, and maybe he could see them as a potential finals contender. And I think he has to be a lock for Philly.
Yeah. And Doc Rivers usually does run a center. Like he ran DeAndre Jordan. He
Mm-hmm.
had back then he had KG and Kendrick Perkins. He always is comfortable running a center and kind of using that center as a defensive anchor because obviously DeAndre Jordan had good defensive years with Doc. KG won Defensive Player of the Year with Doc. Joel Embiid is definitely a player that has potential to be a Defensive Player of the Year or at least all-team type defender. So obviously they're suiting their best player with him. And then the Ben Simmons fit, like he's kind of similar to Rondo in his prime, as in he can't shoot, but
Mm.
he's a great defender. He's a great a passer, and he's not going to score a lot, but he'll set up the rest of the team.
Mm-hmm.
So this could be very a situation that kind of Doc Rivers fits better than the Clippers, and I can honestly see him pushing this Sixers team to actual contention. I know we always say it,
Yeah, we always say it.
but this I feel like with Doc Rivers and obviously trading away the Horford and other trades that they're going to make, this easily could be the best Sixers team since that Jimmy Butler Sixers team.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Sixers what they need is a because Brett Brown has been there for through the all the process and everything. I think what the Sixers need is someone from the outside who sees the potential of this team, someone who's going to be able to be hard on Embiid and Simmons, because effort, especially with Embiid, effort is a question mark all the time. And I don't think a Doc Rivers team. I mean, you could say the Clippers didn't really show up effort wise in their series against the Nuggets, but
Yeah.
I think he would coach them hard, and I think that's what they need. And you're right, he knows how to coach playmakers who don't necessarily know how to shoot, and
Hmm.
maybe that combined with the roster moves that they should hopefully make in the offseason, that yeah, they could. The East is going to look a lot different, but they should be near the top of the East
Yeah.
if this does happen.
The question is, Mike D'Antoni is probably going to lose the Sixers job now with Doc
Yeah,
Rivers
yeah.
being vacant.
Hmm.
Does he get an opportunity elsewhere in the league, or
So
is 69-year-old Mike D'Antoni
yeah,
retiring?
I've heard Indiana, but I
Oh,
don't. I don't know if that might be a fit. Indiana. He's they have couple good guards. I mean, we can get into Victor Oladipo. Probably not this podcast. We'll get into him another
yeah,
episode. But he's good at coaching guards. I don't know, like if Malcolm Brogdon is on the level of James Harden and Steve Nash, but
yeah,
uh, that's a potential fit. I would personally like to see maybe Washington see him turn Bradley Beal into a guy. I mean, he already averages 30, but I'd like to see what he can do with that because we know what he does with really good scoring, shooting guards, and point guards.
yeah. The thing with Mike D'Antoni is I don't see him taking a role where he sees he can't win a championship with.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the ceiling of the Pacers and the Wizards are just not championship ceiling. Whereas the Houston Rockets and the Sixers team, even though they weren't the favorites to win the championship,
Mhm.
you saw it. Like there's a chance, there's like a little chance that they could win the championship, and like
Mhm.
that enticed Mike D'Antoni to be like, let's give it one more try. Let's push it into our 70s. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
let's keep riding it out. I think like when these are the only teams showing him like interest, I think he's just
Mhm.
gonna call it a day, and I think this is gonna be it for him.
Yeah, because I mean, we've seen what Mike D'Antoni teams look like. They all play very similar system. Not a lot of defense. A lot of
Hmm.
obviously a lot of threes. Uh, just kind of playing by the numbers. Um, and I don't really see any fits for him other than like possibly Indiana, Washington. But
Yeah,
like you said, at this point in his career, he's 69 years old. He's not going to want to coach a 30-win team
yeah,
like the Wizards would probably be. So probably 69 years old, retire. I think he'd be pretty good in the media. I can see him like landing an
yeah,
ESPN gig somewhere.
yeah. And talking about the Pacers briefly, I heard Chauncey Billups was also a
Mm,
very big candidate for that role, and I think he's gonna land that role because Chauncey's been in multiple discussions for either a front office or a head coach role. And I think the
mm-hmm.
Pacers want someone new in that could maybe inspire the players and lead this new team because this Pacers team's not going to be the same at all with
No, no, no.
players
Yeah,
players like Victor Oladipo and Miles
not at
Turner
all.
probably getting traded.
Yeah, yeah. We'll
Yeah,
get into that later because there's so much that can happen with that team for sure. So
yeah.
I just do you think too Ty Lue is a lock for the Clippers job?
The other name that's being tossed around is Jeff Van Gundy.
Mm-hmm.
I hope Jeff Van Gundy doesn't get hired. One, because I actually like him on commentary. I know a
Yeah,
lot of
so do I.
people.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people find him frustrating, but he's a voice that like is so different from anyone else's opinions
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. So it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of interesting to hear on commentary. So I want to stay. I want him to stay on commentary, and he hasn't coached in like 10 years. He hasn't coached at all during the 3 point like
Mm-hmm.
game.
Mm-hmm.
So like he's kind of just too out of date in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not the people. He's like he's so used to going hard on his players and like not getting backlash. This is now a players league, not a coaches league, and it's just not going to work out well in my opinion. So I think he should not get hired, and I think it's Ty Lue's. I think it's Ty Lue's
I think
job to lose.
it has to be Ty Lue because the I mean you could say what you want about Ty Lue. You could say that he was just kind of along for the ride for that Cavs championship if you want, but I think the Clippers don't necessarily need like a Nick Nurse type of coach who's going to scheme his way with like with a lesser roster on paper
Yeah,
with X's and O's to winning a game. They just need a personality because they don't have that leader on the floor that the Lakers do, that the Raptors do, that Miami does, for example. And I think Ty Lue could be that guy, could be that voice that could, keep. I don't think Ty Lue would have allowed what happened in Game 7 to happen. I mean, I think
yeah.
Doc Rivers is a really good coach too, but I just think Ty Lue would probably be that personality that they need.
And everyone's in the league, even though Kawhi kind of blew it in the game 7, everyone still considers him a top 4 player in
Mm-hmm.
the league. And
Mm-hmm.
if you look at all the other top 3 players, LeBron has Frank Vogel, not the greatest coach of all time, but he does his job. Steve Kerr coaches Steph Curry, not the greatest coach, but he does his job. He manages.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Durant as Steve Nash, a first-time coach. He's not going to be the greatest at X and O's. He's going to be a man, like a
Mm-hmm.
people manager. So like a person like Kawhi, maybe you don't need the greatest X and O
Yeah.
coach.
Yeah.
You kind of just need a people manager to motivate the role players
Exactly.
and get them on the right page. Because when you have a player that's as good as Kawhi and a second player as good as Paul George, you kind of just need players to give them the ball
Mm-hmm.
and let the offense go through them. It's a very
Yeah.
easy job
Yeah.
to do, but if you can't succeed with it, it has very harsh penalties like getting
Yeah.
fired.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. So I think that covers it for the coach. Are there any other candidates you think for that job? I mean, you said Jeff Van Gundy. How about like, I mean, Mark Jackson's
fans,
name always comes up.
only
Um,
from fans though.
I don't see that as a possibility.
Hmm.
I
I
just,
don't either.
yeah. So
The thing
I
with
think,
Mark,
yeah.
the thing with Mark Jackson is, I've never seen an executive, an article, person in the media bring up his name,
Mm-hmm. It's
saying
only
like, "Oh,
fans.
he's a possibility." It's just fans.